Hello, welcome to the Bronze Age Monsters bonus show. This is a show we make each and every week for our loyal patrons. We talk about a movie that is thematically consistent with the issue that we talked about this week, being that we talked about Astonishing Tales 21, featuring It the Living Colossus. Matt, you found us a movie that fit very well with that, which is Daimajin. It's a Japanese film from 1966, directed by Kimiyoshi Yasuda. And yeah, it is about a giant statue that comes to life and kicks ass. And yeah, I didn't really know what to expect when you said that. I was just like, oh, this probably is going to be like a, just kind of like a crappy kaiju movie. I wasn't.
Did I say that?
No, I thought that.
Oh, your expectations. Okay.
Yeah, my expectations were that this was going to be, like a crappy kaiju movie, and it is not. It's quite beautiful and nuanced and great. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, this came on my radar maybe in the last 10 years. I'd never heard of it before. I was on this psychotronic torrent site called Cinemageddon, which is one of the most amazing things that a fan of the weird, the ultra, the odd of cinema can possibly have in their life. I've discovered so much strange stuff, but I'm not sure how this came through my transom. But yeah, I knew it was related to the Golem, and it's kind of I'd kind of got a sense that it was like, like not that Godzilla is all laughs, Godzilla is largely a reaction to the bombings, the atom bomb, of World War II, dealt with in a really weird way. I don't mean to judge, but I mean, just like of the ways you expect that to express itself culturally was not what I expected. But I do like the idea that it's a monster that comes as a result of this thing. Whereas this is more, in my opinion, folk horror almost, like the Golem myth of like. So when we say the Golem, folks, we're talking about the Golem of, is it Prague or Warsaw? The Rabbi Lowe. How the Jews were persecuted in like the medieval ages, and
I can't remember which one it is. It's one of those two. I thought so.
But if you don't know that story, there's a unfortunately the Jews have a long history of being persecuted through wherever they are in the world, and they were forced to be in these ghettos, and I think it's Prague or Warsaw. I can't remember where it is, but they're have the foot on their neck, virtually speaking, and this rabbi creates this clay figure, and he carves the Hebrew word for life into its head, and the life is breathed into it, and it becomes this, what we would think of as like a Frankenstein monster or whatever, and it protects the people who are being oppressed by the people of the city. And it goes out of control, and there's this beautiful kind of poetic thing. I might be spoiling some of the stuff for the Golem issues we're reading this season, but like I believe in Hebrew, you add or erase one letter, and it changes like life to like death or something. It's like this very like poignant like thing where you remove one letter, and it goes back to being clay or dust. So this is very much like that, but there's also this cool element that I love about. Again, this is why I said folk horror, which I might be stretching it a bit, but like how there's these villages in like Japan where they worship a local deity. So there's this local deity that's associated with this mountain near this small village, and they make offerings to it. And there's a statue as part of a shrine towards it. And this is all about what happens to those villagers, and spans a decade in time. But I mean, what were your initial thoughts? I mean, like you said, you were expecting like just stomping on small electric cars, and you got something very different.
Yeah, I really did. I mean, it just was this very kind of beautiful, I don't know, almost, period piece, samurai style film, just about these villagers. And we have a time jump of about 10 years, I think, right?
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was a really beautiful period piece, not unlike, Kobayashi or any of the great Japanese directors. And so when does the titular Daimajin show up? 15 minutes before the movie's over?
Yeah.
Yeah, or so. So I mean, the rest of that whole movie is just the majority of the movie is just this kind of beautiful little tale of a village that's being oppressed. And
right. But I mentioned this on the watch along, the wrestling woman versus the Aztec mummy. The Aztec mummy shows up in the last 15, 20 minutes of the film as well.
Yeah.
But they chose to fill the first hour
with garbage.
Female wrestling.
Yeah.
And this one was a very high production value period piece story about an entire village of people being oppressed by a usurper of the local throne. So it's a very different experience.
It's an extremely different experience. I'm not complaining that the Daimajin didn't show up until the end. But you're right. It's that same kind of formula. Obviously, your big special effects piece, you don't want that through the whole movie. You're not going to have a budget for that. You're not going to, but this was not a cheap movie. Like, it was the cinematography, the way, the sets, everything. It was beautifully made. It reminded me more of, a lot of Qui-Gon in a lot of ways, just the way that the sets were and how beautiful it was. I think the woman that plays, did she play the Shrine Maiden? I think, was in one of the priestess was in one of the first story in Qui-Gon, the black hair. And I got shades of that. I mean, it's not, obviously, we talked about this on the watch along. You and I hold Qui-Gon as one of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah.
And this isn't quite that, but it's it's beautiful. And it was funny watching it with a bunch of people, and no one was complaining or being like, what is this? I thought this was a monster movie. Everyone was just so into this like period soap opera, basically.
Yeah.
And we're just like, no, this is great. Like, I think either you or I think you said, like, halfway through, you're just like, yeah, I don't miss the monster so far. I just love where this is going.
Yeah. And there's a stark difference between this and like the Wrestling Woman and the Aztec Mummy. Whereas like in that one, it literally is, I think, just cutting corners and just padding. Whereas this to me felt more like it was about dramatics, and like the same way, like, if someone went, this might be a random reference. My Bodyguard, this movie that I loved when I was a kid with Matt Dillon and Chris Makepeace in it. It's like saying like, well, he only beat the boy up in the last 10 minutes of the film. Like, that's literally the entire fucking point. Like,
yeah,
if it was just Matt Dillon getting his ass handed to him as a bully the entire film, there would be no dramatic structure. Like, no. So, it is withholding the high production and the big damage, whatever the money scenes, if you want to call it that, the money shots throughout the whole thing. But they also are earned, and I think they are very kind of ecstatic and orgiastic when they happen, because we were all cheering like when they happened, knowing fully well we've been manipulated the entire time. But like, I mean, this. So the story is about a kindly lord of this small village who respects the local superstition that this nearby mountain has a spirit in it, and the villagers worship it. They give offerings to it. And it's this annual celebration. And he supports it, but doesn't really believe in it. And then they go and do that. And while that's happening, there's a coup that happens, this bloody coup, and he's slaughtered, and an evil asshole takes his place, and his offspring flee because they'll be killed, obviously, because they have a claim to the throne. And so they run off and say, essentially, one of the vassals takes them to safety and says, we'll be back here in 10 years and address this issue. Yeah. And they end up hiding inside the shrine up on this beautiful waterfall. We couldn't figure out if that was, how much of it was a set and how much of it was like composite, fakery, and how much was like a real thing. But gorgeous, like cave inside of a waterfall at the top of this mountain. And a lot of the film is like this drama of the villagers, like dealing with this tormentor, and us waiting for the 10 years for them to mature and come back and claim the throne, and they need a little help.
Yeah, and they get it. But yeah, you're right. I don't know. I would definitely classify this as folk horror. I mean, it's local deities.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense now that you say that and classify it as that. But yeah, you're right. We were cheering at the end, and that's good storytelling. We were sucked into the story, and then we get this huge reveal. And, it's very earned. You're right. It was totally orgiastic at the end. And it was done really well, too. Yeah. Like, it didn't look super fakey. It was kind of terrifying and awesome and really satisfying to see the bad guys get their, asses handed to them by a giant stone statue come to life.
I did poke around a little bit online, and I have to mention that we watched this on YouTube. So we saw it through Creature Features, the weekly TV show, and I believe that we saw a slightly edited one for television. I read some descriptions of comeuppance, violence scenes, kills that were a little more explicit than we saw.
Oh.
So we might have been deprived of a little bit more of the, cathartic, whatever that was. Of
that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, it still came across, but I think it was a little more violent that we saw.
Gotcha.
So yeah. I really loved the kind of crude, beautiful simplicity of the statue of the shrine, and then once he's imbued with the spirit of the mountain god, this kind of happens, and he changes and has a more terrifying aspect. He has this kind of benign, something you would pray to, just like a mask under a samurai helmet. And then once he changes, it's like a fright mask, and there's human eyes behind it, and he's horrifying. There's moments where the head kind of turns and looks, and the eyes regard something that needs to be killed, and he's kind of scary.
Yeah, he is scary.
So these were filmed back to back. They were planned as a trilogy, and they were released, I think, one per year or over 2 years. And I think they were mildly popular. I don't know a ton about them. I did some research, but there's not a lot online, at least in English, about behind the scenes stuff on this. So like you said at the beginning, I feel like my takeaway was super high production values. The cinematography is gorgeous throughout the whole thing. For the most part, the sets are absolutely amazing. Some of them are real, some of them are not. There are some fakey caves inside the shrine that don't look great. But it's 1966, the same way the occasional cave in a Star Trek episode doesn't look great. But the overwhelming majority to me looks absolutely gorgeous, and the cinematography is gorgeous. So this is a trilogy, and we saw the first one, and I think there are 4 or 5 at the Living Colossus episodes. So we're going to be doing 4 or 5 related films. So we're definitely watching the trilogy.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Which I'm excited about. So I'm going to spread them out a little bit. We're going to watch The Colossus of New York, which is a sci-fi film I'd never heard of, from 1958 or 59, I believe. And we're going to probably watch Frankenstein Conquers the World, which is just slapping a exploitative title onto a Japanese unrelated film. But it has kind of kaiju giant monster elements as well. And so I'm excited to watch the whole trilogy.
Yeah, me too. I mean, not a surprise. I'm claw up all the way for this one.
Big claw up. I'm a Daimajin guy now. I was impressed. I was expecting. I'd read about it a bit, online. So I was expecting good stuff, and I was not let down. I was actually impressed. It was better than I thought it would be. So very cool. Our next film is we're going back to a Strange Tales issue next week. So we're watching House on Skull Mountain, a blaxploitation voodoo film that I've always wanted to see. It's been on my list forever, and I'm basing that entirely on poster art. And you never get deceived by poster art, so it's going to be great.
Not once.
Cool. Yeah, and if you want to join us on Discord, our default date has kind of been Sunday evenings at 7-ish, 7 or 7:30 Pacific time. And I always post a link to the Discord watch-alongs on Patreon. You're obviously watching this because you're a Patreon supporter, so you don't need to know that that's where that is. Yeah, we'd love to have you there. It makes watching the weaker films that we watch a lot more bearable, and it's surprisingly more enjoyable when we're watching a good one too. Like, I was just kind of sitting back and enjoying, like, there was these extended periods of silence, like people just were watching the film and not feeling the need to comment or like feel any kind of awkward, like, well, this is shit, making some wisecrack. Like, everyone was just like, no, this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was funny.
Good deal. I got some really strong beer, a growler of really strong beer. So I've been listening to Black Sabbath and Beastie Boys on vinyl. Oh my God, dude. Ill Communications.
Just in general,
I mean, I spent my entire senior year in high school smoking massive amounts of pot to check your head.
Check your head. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So to me, that was like the gospel, that and Paul's Boutique, which I discovered, after the fact.
They are.
So when I went to my freshman year in college and was cutting class and playing hacky sack and smoking, taking bong rips and whatever, when Ill Communication finally came out, I was a little disappointed. Like, I didn't know why. I didn't know what I felt like the bar was just too high. But, it's an amazing record, but I was like, it's good. It felt like it was more of the same, or even like adding on and doing more of what they did on Check Your Head. I don't know. But, hearing it, I've only heard it on CD and MP3 or whatever, or streaming my entire life. And I bought it on vinyl today, and it fucking tore my head open. I couldn't believe how different it sounds on vinyl.
I've never heard it on vinyl, so yeah.
Completely reappraised it. Like,
well, that's awesome.
I felt like an asshole for the way I kind of said it's like Check Your Head Junior. Because it's amazing.
I'll give it a. Well, yeah. If I ever end up having it on vinyl, I'll give it a listen. But yeah.
Plus, it's like the final like classic. I mean, I love their stuff after that, but like Mixmaster Mike, when they brought him in, like, he redefined everything they did musically, and he's so whatever he is, showy, and like they just never sounded the same. Like, he literally became the fourth Beastie Boy, and I kind of miss DJ Hurricane, like just classic cutting, like just like here and there, instead of like, no, I'm literally building the beats from like 7 turntables that I'm all working at one time, and like spinning 18 Curtis Mayfield records, and like cutting and scratching and like building the beats from shit. Like, that's cool.
It's very cool.
But it's like, it's like John Holmes has a 12-inch dick. We get it. It's fucking huge. Your cock is huge.
It's huge.
That's all you do, is just you pull your cock out every time there's an argument and go, but dude.
but check this head.
Yeah. So, but that, and plus, like I was saying you commented on the Black Sabbath. I'd been wanting that first album on vinyl forever. I'd never heard it. I bought that first album. I was telling this to Renee when she came home and I was playing it. I bought that at Bi-Mart from the cutout bin for like $4.99 when I was like a freshman, and I was a year young for my class. So I was like 12 or something, or 13. And, I wasn't really Catholic, but I was Catholic enough. I was like my family wasn't weird religious, but I was like, like Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel, and they liked like Air Supply and Huey Lewis, and like it was that kind of family. So like I felt really wrong. Like the title song of the band of their first album plays, the Storms playing, and some of this cloaked figure in black in a graveyard. I was like, I shouldn't be listening to this. This is not right.
No, it's demonic.
And hearing that on vinyl for the first time parted my fucking hair the opposite side of my head. I mean, it blew my fucking mind how good it is.
That's the record for me. Like, honestly, that's the one I go back to. And yeah, the Wizard especially. And goddamn, that sequence in Barry with the Wizard is one of the funniest and coolest things I've ever seen. It's especially when the camera's pushing in on the gal working at the coffee shop with her expression, and then suddenly they're riding together.
That opening sequence should have won an Emmy, in my opinion, of that episode.
I honestly think that might be one of my favorite things in all of Barry.
Oh, it totally is.
It's got to be top 3. And there's so many fucking good things about Barry. Yeah, that sequence. Oh my God, Fuchs as the Raven.
It's funny because I went in this whole like rabbit hole when we watched that. Like we kind of crapped out halfway through, and then finally rewatched the whole thing, and he's like the only person that has a proper arc in some ways. And his arc is so bizarre.
It's really bizarre.
And just the fact that, the black comedy of like him, the Raven being created and then being realized through these awful circumstances, and the way he comes out of, that last season, fucking A, man. Crazy.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, I'm just going to use this as that chatter I was talking about.
Okay, great.
So why don't you just do an outro here, and then we'll call it good, and we'll loop around.
Okay. So yeah, that's the bonus show. And I said I wasn't going to do this often, but I do have my partner back.
Come on, do it.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up. Dad wants to say hi. Okay, so from me and tired, angry Sweet Pea, I'm going back to a classic. Hail Satan! Oh, she's not happy.
Oh,
she's not having it.
I heard something.
Yeah. There you go, sweetie. I'm sorry.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
That's the bonus show. Mountain God Shrine, ba ba ba. You were awesome when you would kill the evil Lord. Ba-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. Mountain God Shrine, ba ba ba. You did the things that you could. Daimajin guy, ba ba ba. Really?